Hello, everybody, and welcome to the first episode of the Friday Night Campfire series here on the JdoRadio channel. In fact, this will actually be our first episode ever of anything. So, I hope you can sit back, relax, and enjoy this first reading. Today we're going to be reading DreadAR. It started a couple of weeks ago when a close friend of mine, who we will call Brendan, sent me a text message for an app he had found. The strange app was called DreadAR, and it supposedly allowed the user to see ghosts and or spirits through the camera on their phone. That was at least what Brendan said when he messaged me. I thought the entire thing was ridiculously stupid, mostly because I wasn't much for believing any kinds of ghosts existed. And even then, I highly doubted an app could make you see them if they did exist. That was until I started getting troubling messages from Brendan. They were extremely out of character for him. The messages became more erratic with claims that someone or something was now following him. I thought he was just messing around with me initially, just trying to scare me or play some kind of weird joke. I kept dismissing his messages and would just send an LOL anytime he would talk about the pale, bald man that he kept seeing. The messages stopped coming a few days ago, and I got a call from a mutual friend that Brendan's body had just been found floating on top of a creek underneath a bridge. The police quickly ruled it a suicide. What made it seem stranger were the scratch marks above Brendan's eyes. It almost seemed like something was trying to claw them out. The police had an answer for that as well, of course. They reported they suspected that Brendan might have been high on drugs. I was taking the news of my friend's death pretty hard, so I called out of work and skipped class that day. As I laid in my bed, I kept asking myself, why would he do something like this? He'd never seemed suicidal or even depressed. Also, I'd never known him to do any drugs outside of occasionally smoking weed. Something wasn't adding up, so I pulled out my phone and started to scroll back through his messages. I reread his messages and watched as he went from the normal, jovial Brendan I used to know to that Brendan of a raving madman that he became. I went back to the first message about the app and clicked the link, and it began downloading the DreadAR app. After a few moments, it had installed on my phone. I opened the app and it asked if I would allow it to send notifications, which I did allow. When I got to the camera screen, I scanned my room and nothing appeared out of the ordinary. After closing the app, I realized how stupid I was for even thinking some kind of novelty app could see the dead or even have anything to do with my friend's death. I sat my phone down on my nightstand and turned it over to take a bit of a nap. I woke up a few hours later when I realized I had not had anything to eat all day. I got dressed and left my apartment and started walking through the courtyard. I felt my phone vibrate in my pocket. At first I ignored it, thinking it was a text message, but it kept vibrating steadily. I pulled out my phone for a second to see that DreadAR notification had popped up. The notification just said, "You are not alone." I opened up the app and lifted the phone up. At first I did not see anything, so I started to look around the area. At the other end of the courtyard was a woman wandering around aimlessly. She almost seemed lost. I started moving towards the direction she was walking in. Something seemed strange. I noticed she had nasty slashes and blood running down one of her wrists. When I was about 10 feet away, I pulled my phone down and saw nothing but the empty courtyard. I quickly pulled the phone back up and she reappeared, only to keep wandering in the courtyard. After a few moments of trying to figure out whether to be sincerely scared or impressed by the design of the app, I put my phone back in my pocket. I started to walk to a nearby store to pick up some snacks, then started to make my way back home. My phone started to vibrate again. It was another notification from the app. I pulled out my phone and pointed it directly ahead. At the end of the street was a man dressed in plain clothes, his face covered in blood like he'd been in a car accident. He just kept staring at the direction of the road. He pulled his hands up and covered his face like he was weeping, as if he was looking at something that had happened on the road. I kept looking around the area and noticed past the weeping man was another figure standing in the distance. This one was very out of place, as he just stood still in the middle of the road, in an old black zoot suit, hat and top. What made me feel uneasy was that he was looking directly in my direction, like he could see me as well. He then took off his hat like he was greeting me. And that will be it for this week, my friends. Unfortunately, I just moved to a new apartment, so I'll have to cut this video and the next Friday Night Campfire short. But do tune in next week to hear the final part, or at least part 2, of DreadAR. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to my channel if you enjoy the content. It gives me a good indicator if I should keep going with the content. And I thank you very much for joining me today.